Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Gallop Out episode 2. I'm your host, Ryan Anderson. Today, I get to be joined by Matthew DeSantis at Failed to Menace on Twitter or on X. Matthew, hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks so
Hey,
much for having me, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you for joining me. Excited to have you on with us as we're going to talk about the late pick 5 at Saratoga on this Sunday, day after Travers Day. We got some great New York State bred action, and then we're also going to talk about our Travers best bet here at the end of the card here. So yeah, let's just kind of get right into it. First, this is my first time kind of officially meeting you. So how are you? And yeah, can you just give me a little bit about yourself and what you do
Yeah,
for?
sure. Doing well. Thanks so much for having me. And always excited to talk about some New York Reds up here in the Empire State. And as Sunday's going to be really great card. Obviously, the world's going to be focused on the Travers the day before, and we'll get to that at the end. But some really competitive races here. We have some really nice New York breds, some really good stakes races. So excited for this, and excited because we have great weather. I'm jealous of you out in sunny Southern California. You guys get great weather all the time, but we've been dealing with a lot of rain over the last few weeks. But fortunately, the clouds have parted, and we have nothing but blue skies and sunshine for this whole weekend. So it should be great and wonderful to see. It's going to be fast and firm on Saturday and Sunday. So great betting conditions for the players out there.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very excited I was very excited when I saw the forecast for this weekend. Obviously, it's been a pretty wet summer up in Saratoga. I am lucky enough to live down in San Diego, get to go to Del Mar and call that place my home track. But I do love some Saratoga action, so it's nice that we're going to be fast and firm for this weekend because looking at that card, it is spectacular on Saturday. And so,
oh yeah, I mean it's really really good. I mean the 5 straight grade ones, that late pick 5. I would argue the H. Allen Jerkins might be the best betting race outside of the Breeders' Cup. I mean that's just an obscenely good field of 11 3-year-old sprinters, and that's as good a field as you're going to get. So really excited. I mean I think the ballerina looks really tough with Vava, but I think there's some interesting alternatives there in that spot. So it's just up and down a great card. Even the undercard, before you get to the grade ones, looks really good. So excited to do that. And, obviously, putting out a lot of content on Naira Bets. You mentioned my X handle Failed to Menace. So if people want to get any of my picks or analysis for Travers Day or beyond on Naira Bets, they can check it out there.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I love seeing the content you create on behalf of Naira, and it's always great information to have and great information to listen to. All right, well, also I'm happy you mentioned the H. Allen Jerkins because that race is phenomenal, top to bottom. That race is awesome. I'm happy we got the announcement. Bookham Dano is going to be running there instead of at Charlestown. That just adds to the excitement and the build up for that race. But yeah, we have an excellent card Sunday, as we mentioned. So let's go ahead and get on into the that late pick 5 at Saratoga on Sunday's card.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll kick things off with race number 7, which is an allowance race going 1.16 miles on the inner turf course. And one of the things I'll mention is one of the things I do for Naira Bets is I kind of track how winning trip analysis basically by surface and by distance. And one of the things that we have seen is that the inner turf course has not yielded many gate to wire winners, only about 14% for the entire meet. And we've actually seen horses coming from well off the pace do very well over this inner turf course. So that kind of also impacted some of my thinking when I went about handicapping this race in terms of just how the turf has been playing in general during this meet.
Absolutely, yeah. Taking into account those trip biases, those trip patterns that you notice, where it is to be beneficial. For comparative example, Del Mar early on in the meet, inside speed on the dirt was key, so that factored into handicapping angles both moving forward and during those days. So yeah, absolutely, it's definitely important to pay attention to any biases, any preferences you notice, as those kind of do happen. I know kind of the rails being out also has a tendency to affect whether speed is good, whether closers benefit, stuff like that. So happy we have a fellow handicapper who can pay close attention to those sorts of things, because that's always very important. All right, race 7, I'll put it down on the ticker below, our picks for that race. I'm going 2-10-5 and you are going 7, 11, 6. So all three of our top picks are very different here. Why don't you start off with number 7, Lakeside Getaway?
Yeah, so I think this is a horse that obviously is, coming off of a second place finish last time out, going against Awesome Check, who came back to win the Susie O'Kane in that next start. And I'm kind of playing against, and that's the number 9 horse in this race. And I'm kind of playing against that one a little bit, just because this is a horse that likes to be up front, and I just have a feeling that that's going to be an issue in this race, because I think the 3 and the 4 horse also like to kind of press the pace, and I'd argue she got away with some fast fractions. So as a result, as you mentioned, I like the 7 quite a bit, and that's number 7, Island Fox, for Christophe Clement. This is a second time turf starter, and this is a horse that Clement had debuted on the dirt, switches over to the turf, immediately perks up. And I like this horse in particular because you got to trust everything Christophe Clement sends out up here, but also Dylan Davis is having an outstanding meet from a jockey perspective, and he is just turning in consistent winners every day, and usually at a little bit of a price. I thought this one looked good coming out and getting that maiden breaking win. I know going up against winners now is going to be a challenge, but I think this one is just starting to figure things out, and Dylan gave this one a good ride. And it's important to point out the horse that that Island Fox beat in that last race during the Belmont at Aqueduct meet is Summer Whirl, who went on to break her maiden next time out and then run in the Susie O'Kane and run 4th that day. So even though that was a maiden race, that was against good company. And I just think this one has the ability to continue to step forward and should sit more of a tracking trip behind the early speed.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Island Fox is going to fire a big shot in here as well. That first-time turf effort was certainly good. Christophe Clement, off maiden wins is a strong number. And then, as you mentioned, Dylan Davis has been riding lights out for the entire Saratoga meet. He's been popping at good prices. He has been, just an excellent rider. He's really taken a huge next step, and he is a threat anytime he's on the turf course to spring an upset at a nice price. All right. Dylan Davis, big threat on the turf with Island Fox there coming out for Christophe Clement. One of my top picks, or my top pick in that race, is going to be Start Now from Merton Cantermachi. Eric Cancel on board, came out of the same race as Lakeside Getaway. Watching the replay, he was a little wide, kind of both turns, kind of flattened out down the stretch as you'd expect. Awesome Check, as you mentioned, came back to repeat in a nice statebred stakes race about a week ago or so at Saratoga. And then looking back at that maiden 40 win, I don't know that he beat much. He did beat the show horse in that maiden 40 race, did come back to win their next out on the turf. But just kind of looking, I kind of like this horse. Probably going to be a price. Obviously, the morning lines aren't out yet, but I think Eric Cancel teaming up for Cantermachi can sit a good trip. Hopefully tip out kind of top of the lane and run them down. So I'm hoping for a bit. I'm hoping he'll be a bit of a price in here. But I like the way he looks. I liked his last race. And I think we're both kind of viewing that last allowance race as kind of a live race with Awesome Check coming out of there and immediately kind of repeating at Saratoga.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the benefits of talking to me on a day like today is I got the morning line about an hour ago from David Aragona, who does it for us up here. So you're right. Starts now is going to be 12 to 1 on the morning line. So a little bit of a price, but I really like this one as well. And I should mention the horse Island Fox, who we both kind of like, is 9 to 2 on the morning line. So that's a couple of horses just to give you a point of reference. But I think that's right. I really did. I took a long look at this number 4 horse Starts Now in this race. I would not be surprised if this horse runs a big effort. Always impressive to see, just how well the horse runs back after coming out of particularly a maiden claiming race. You go, well, how good is this horse really now stepping up to allowance, N1X company, and not going against claimers or optional claimers, stepping right up to N1X allowance and doing a really good job. Absolutely belonged in that race. And Cantermachi is, he'll get those prices home. And overall, his win percentage might not be that high, but his horses have been firing by and large this entire meet. So I think a valid long shot to take in this race.
Cantor Machi and David Donk, David Duggan, they're the kind of guys who really succeed on these kind of state bred days. Their win percentage might not be at face value, might not look, the same as like a Chad Brown or a Mike Maker, but they fire and they know where to place their horses, and they can really fire at a good price and a good spot, because they often get kind of forgotten about. But I think a card like this, in a race like this, where he didn't embarrass himself first time going against winners, which is a big step up from those state bred maiden claimers that he faced two back. Didn't embarrass himself, and I think coming right back in this spot, it should be a good setup for him.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. It's a competitive race, and again, if you're going to try to beat the number 7 or the number 9 Lakeside Getaway, I think we both have very similar approaches in terms of spreading out a little bit in this first leg of the sequence and kind of trying to catch maybe a price here or there, trying to go with a couple of other horses, and I think that's kind of the way you have to approach this. If you like a horse like Lakeside Getaway, that's fine. You're probably going to still get a decent price on that horse just because of the sheer size of this field. And so it's not like this is a horse that's going to be 9-5 or, something along those lines where you feel like, well, maybe I need a single or maybe just include one other horse. I mean, if you like Lakeside Getaway and you want to include him with or her with a couple of other horses, maybe one or two others, that's fine from a ticket construction standpoint. But I think if, you and I are both trying to get past her a little bit here and trying to catch a price.
Absolutely. Just looking at those past races for Lakeside Getaway, gets to the lead and then just never really finishes off those races. Added blinkers a couple starts back, and that didn't seem to do the trick. Normally, that'll keep them sharper, keep them focused, and a lot of times you'll see them kind of finish off those races. But for whatever reason, this horse just about 200 yards to go just decides to, kind of stop running and to let others kind of catch up with him or catch up with her. That's definitely to me, that's a good angle of a horse to try and beat in this spot. And I think we've both chosen some good alternatives to that favorite to try and, catch a price to start off this late sequence.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to race 8, we have the Fleet Indian, the 1 1/8 for 3-year-old fillies, state bred, of course, as we are on the state bred day. And we both landed with our top pick as the number 8, My Main Squeeze. No real surprise here. Do you have any info on whether this horse is going to be running at Charlestown?
I don't. And, obviously that's going to be a big question, because if she doesn't, then the race opens up a little bit more. But she is kind of the clear choice here. I mean, coming out of multiple grade 1 races where she did not disgrace herself at all. And I thought ran very competitively against horses like Ways and Means and Torpedo Anna, and even Power Squeeze, who we saw came back to win the Alabama last week up here at Saratoga. So I do think she's probably better at one turn, but that being said, she just has the class over this field that you just really can't calculate. I mean, the buyers are obviously influential, but going 1 1/8, sure. She's got good early tactical speed. She can sit a tracking trip, which is traditionally the sort of trip you want to sit on the main track up here going 2 turns. And, she's shown the ability to run against much, much tougher company going 2 turns. And you go back and look at her state bred record before she started facing open company. And I mean, she was kind of untouchable at that level. So I think she returns to very comfortable spots. And I'd imagine, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers to see how many horses Mike Maker has been running at Charlestown, and maybe what the purse looks like in that race to see, who's going to, to try to read the tea leaves. But if she's here, she's a single on the card.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I'd have to double check. I think I want to say the purse is 250,000 at Charlestown.
Okay.
I need to double check that. Because I know it's their big racing day on Friday. Like Bookham Dano elected for the Jerkins over the 500K Charlestown.
Right.
They have their $1 million race as well, where I think Skippy Longstocking is going to start there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but should be a really great card at Charlestown. But yeah, that's really going to depend for My Main Squeeze here, because when you lose to a Grizzly Bear and Ways and Means in your last 4 races, it's kind of tough because you're not meeting any of that type of competition here. My Main Squeeze kind of really just burst onto the scene. Was doing great in state bred, but then at that sloppy effort at Churchill on, I believe, Derby Day, really just kind of came to and, put herself on the map, so to speak. This horse is hard to get by if she does run in this spot. However, we both have alternatives just in case. One of them being the number 2 horse Landed by Wesley Ward with Johnny V on board. This horse has run at 2 turns once before at Keeneland versus Open Company and, wired the field. Was on Lasix that day. I'm not sure how much you take that into account. And then came back in June on, that Belmont at Saratoga kind of weekend. I believe that was the Sunday. And then ran a pretty good, had a pretty good win and good speed figure going 7 furlongs in the mud. It was a sealed track, so speed probably a little, favoring that day as it typically is with those sealed tracks. But what did you kind of see here? And because we both kind of went with our second and third choice here respectively.
Yeah, it's certainly a horse that is more than capable of winning this race if My Main Squeeze isn't in. And, I really like the sire Omaha Beach quite a bit on the dirt. And obviously, Ward and Johnny Velasquez are such a formidable duo when they team up. The one concern I have, and this is a little bit of a trainer stat for you, it's a relatively small sample size, but Wesley Ward over the last 5 years is 0 for 11 in dirt route stakes races. So that's one of those things that's not really his MO, going long on the dirt. And that is maybe a slight concern. The Lasix was the point that you brought up here, but this horse should be speed of the speed and should just get out up front. And, I think it could be potentially dangerous to wire the field. But again, this will be a big class test with a horse like My Main Squeeze in there who beat her a few races back by over 4 lengths. When going a mile at Aqueduct. So, but she's clearly kind of the second contender in this race, and wouldn't shock me at all if she ends up winning if My Main Squeeze isn't in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if My Main Squeeze is out in this race, that really opens it up. We have a couple other choices in here. I'll go to yours first with Dolomite, trained by Chad Brown, daughter of Unified, excuse me. Coming off a layoff. Yeah, how'd you land on this one? Is I believe your second choice too.
Yeah, I was just part of it was like the little bit of that Ward angle of like, man, do I trust Wesley Ward horses going long in the dirt? And then this was also kind of a horse that Chad put in a pretty aggressive spot coming off of maiden win, moving her up in the Demoiselle against Life Talk and Shimmering Allure, and she ran third that day, ran pretty well in a grade 2. And that was going a mile and an eighth, so clearly can kind of handle the distance. I mean, she flattened out a little bit late, but it wasn't like she was fatigued necessarily. And then he brings her back off a long layoff. She gets the win at 6 furlongs, now stretches her back out. I don't know. I just think there's upside potential there. She's got nice versatile early speed. I think she can sit kind of a tracking trip, and I just thought might give a little bit of a better price than Landed if for some reason My Main Squeeze isn't in the race.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I had Dolomite as my fourth choice in here. Because I thought all the same things you did coming back. That was a nice allowance win. I think stretching out after that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, she definitely didn't embarrass herself in that 2-turn effort, running against Life Talk and Shimmering Allure. Both of those are great, very nice horses for their respective trainers. My third choice ended up, I landed at Caldwell Loves Gold. This horse seems to really, enjoy the Saratoga main track. I kind of like the outside post because it's not a huge field. It would only be 8 horses if My Main Squeeze goes to Charlestown. So I think you can get a pretty good tracking trip outside of the speed, which is likely Dolomite and Landed, kind of in that second flight of horses. Kind of go around and has proven, some form at 2 turns. Yes, it's been, pretty strictly against state bred. Does have the one open stakes competition. Did not the best, but coming in 5th behind Dolomite in that race, which is kind of interesting. Maybe just didn't really like the slop that day. I'm not sure. Yeah. It was long enough ago. I'm willing to forgive it and just kind of give him another shot here. Obviously, Brad Cox, tough to ignore. He has strong numbers in basically every category you look at. Flo gets the mount, doubled up 83 buyers his last 2 races, so maybe he's looking for a step forward. But either way, this race definitely gets a lot more competitive if My Main Squeeze does not run in this spot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's going to be, it'll be a fun race one way or the other. If she's not in it, then it's a really competitive betting rate. If she is in it, hey, it's going to be fun to see her potentially put on a show.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, moving on to race 9. That is the Funny Side Stakes for 2-year-old state bred horses, male or female in here. I believe we have a full field of males, just looking through it one more time. Yeah, so this is a very deep race. I think this is really competitive. Choosing, any single 2-year-old in especially a stakes bred race is just impossibly tough with how it is. I landed on number 4. That is Mibago, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm just going to go ahead and guess. Mark Cassie, Tyler Gaffleone. This looks like a private purchase by Gary Barber after that first debut race at Colonial. Offspring of Vacoma, and Vacomas have just been ridiculous as 2-year-olds so far. They've been super precocious. Out of an Indian Charlie mare. So, sprinting kind of seems like the name of the game here, at least for right now. Although the Vacomas have been good kind of no matter where you place them. I saw one win, going 2 turns on turf the other day. So they can win kind of wherever they're placed. And I think, at least to me, this is going to be a good kind of alternative, a good horse to land on outside of Moplex. So I'm going to assume is going to be the favorite in here with Irad Ortiz on the far outside. You went with number 7, Under Whose Radar. Could you just kind of give me, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a really tough race. And this is one where, I'm interested because I got the morning line, and I'll just share that with you quickly. Moplex is your favorite at 5-2. Who's Under Radar is your second choice at 3-1. Bostonian at 5-1. You have a couple of horses at 6-1. Mibago, who you mentioned, is actually 15-1, which I think is an outstanding value play because Mark Cassie's been on fire this meet as well, we should mention. And he's been on fire in particular with 2-year-olds. So he's had a really good group of 2-year-olds. My only hesitation with that horse, the only reason I didn't include him in my top 3 was he hasn't had a work at Saratoga since that private purchase and since coming up from Colonial. I was just like, it just was a little bit of a red flag, but it would hardly surprise me to see him win at a big price. I also think he could get bet down a little bit from that morning line. But Under Whose Radar is a Mike Maker horse. And one of the things, and Ryan, you could appreciate this probably being out of Del Mar, seeing a lot of these races and just looking at 2-year-old races in general, there's not a lot of passing that goes on in these 2-year-old races. I mean, it is speed of the speed of the speed a lot of times. And when you look through these past performances, all of these horses look identical. They all got out up front and they just wired their fields in debut. Well, as I like to say, it's a little bit of like the old Mike Tyson line. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's kind of the same thing with these 2-year-old races. Like everybody's got a winning plan until, oops, I don't make the lead. And then what happens? And, 9 horses can't all make the lead. Some of these horses are going to have to learn to run from off the pace and rate. And quite frankly, we just don't know that until we see it on the track because, sometimes you could go to XPTV and look at their works and see maybe are they rating off, running out of target, things like that. You can try to, gain some insight there, but it's still pretty tough. But Under Whose Radar, fast horse for Maker, just really looked good in that debut. And I just thought, was able to get to the lead pretty easily and then draw away late, going 5.5 furlongs, looked to get stronger later. And Jose Ortiz now takes over for his brother, Irad Ortiz, who, of course, stays on Moplex, who is coming off a win in the Sanford. So that is by far and away the classiest horse in the field. Jeremiah Englehart's had a nice meet so far as well. But I just thought, I'd take a shot with Mike Maker, who's been having a terrific meet in his own right. And this is a horse that actually gets off the rail. And typically I hate horses making their debut on the rail. So to show that sort of gate speed and maturity coming out of the inside post in debut, now stepping up, getting a little bit of a more advantageous post with Jose aboard. I'll take a shot, not much of a shot at 3-1, but I'll kind of play against the favorite a little bit in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great analysis. And I like that. Certainly, strongest buyer in the field. The win on the rail shows definitely some guts and determination. Did it at 6-1, so wasn't necessarily one of those, they knew horses that we see a lot of the time. Mike Maker, Jose Ortiz, those are, obviously some very strong connections. They're at 30% this meet with a 243 ROI. Not much you can kind of knock about this horse right now. And it's going to be an interesting race because, as you mentioned, all these horses just know how to be in front. And we can't have a 10-horse, pace duel. I mean, maybe we'll get one, but I doubt it. So it's gonna be really interesting to see kind of who places themselves where, and if looking more into these workouts, to see maybe if they are having some rate off of another horse and then kind of get to them throughout the lane. So that's definitely going to be
Yeah.
a race to watch, and it's going to be something where a lot of these horses are going to get a big education coming out of this race and moving forward. I do want to talk about in the chase, a horse that you used second. That's I think an interesting horse. Carlos David, I know, is pretty good with his 2-year-olds, hitting at about 21%. What kind of took you to this horse as your second choice?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit of what it was the Carlos David angle. Manny Franco up. Manny is just such a strong rider out of the gate too. I mean, there are certain riders I tend to trust on 2-year-olds. Johnny Velasquez being probably number one. He's so good at getting 2-year-olds to calm down. One of the things that I really like about Manny is he's going to put his horse in the right spot. He's going to get the horse out of the gate, and he's going to be forward. He's going to be aggressive, and I like to see that from a jockey, particularly in a 2-year-old race. I thought that debut race was actually pretty solid against State Company. And I thought it was, one of those efforts where he's done the distance of 6 furlongs. He's not stretching out from 5.5, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be. And I just thought this is one who is going to be a little bit more of a price in the chase, is 6-1. So you're getting a little bit more value here. And I just thought this one looked, like I said, kind of interesting in that race because, they kind of ran at him at one point, and he just kind of repelled that challenge that came up and was able to then start drawing away and was kind of under wraps by the time he got to the field. The other thing you mentioned, which I'm really glad you brought up, was he wasn't a they knew horse either. I think sometimes that's something where you go, oh, this horse was, bet down to 4-5 or something like that on debut. Oh, okay, everybody knew. I like horses that sometimes surprise a little bit on debut, sometimes even who surprise their trainers a little bit on debut where they go, oh, we didn't know we had this good of a horse. But they get on the track, they perk up, they puff up, and they really know how to run. And it seemed like he's potentially one of those types.
Yeah, he definitely does. And yeah, the Carlos David angle, he knows how to have those 2-year-olds ready. So he is definitely, on the short list for one of those horses that could be ready to, rate off or to kind of take back. And maybe he's got some education in those workouts because, trainers get these past performances too. They know who's coming to the race. They get to see, the running styles. So they kind of know, obviously only a week out, but you can still kind of, gauge your training based on most 2-year-olds don't know how to rate and don't know how to take them off the pace.
And the fact that you're looking, and the fact you're looking at his workouts, and he doesn't really have big numbers in those workouts. That's kind of showing me they're not asking him for a lot in these workouts. Like, just take it easy, learn how to relax a little bit. Like, just take it easy. It's all right. You don't have to, you don't have to beat the horse next to you. It's all right. Just sometimes when you see those slow works, I know, sometimes a trainer like Linda Rice has a lot of slow work. Sometimes even Mike Maker will have pretty slow works occasionally on his horses. And sometimes that's just that, like you said, that educational component of, all right, let's just get you to calm down a little bit, know what it's like not to have to be up on the front end, and just, it's okay to be next to a horse. It's okay to be a half length off of a horse. It's not the end of the world. And, you don't have to try to beat him to every single pole. And I think sometimes those are the things that you just have to kind of read through the lines a little bit on.
Definitely. Before we get to number 10, Moplex, I do want to talk about the number 1, the other Mike Maker for Luis Saez down on the rail. That is Smile and Say Cheese. Was a very nice debut winner. I had him this day, so I do remember this race. Came out, was just, obviously flashed some good speed, but drawing clear in the lane. So, on the rail in a race like this, what kind of gravitated you towards this pick?
Yeah, I really like this Maker horse as well. This was one who I was really kind of drawn between this one or who ended up being my top choice. But I thought this one looked very good. My only concern, and it's a minor one, was over a sloppy sealed track. And you wondered, did he just like the mud maybe, and did he like the conditions maybe more than some of the other horses in the race that day? Who some young horses in particular will just pack it. Well, some horses at all will just pack it in when it's this sort of conditions. I didn't know. And also sometimes those fractional times can be a little bit faster over a sloppy sealed track. And you wonder, okay, is he going to run quite as fast over a dry fast track, which is what we're expecting Sunday? So that was kind of a slight concern there. And then this is just a personal handicapping bias that I have, but that inside rail for 2-year-olds, I always just feel so conflicted about it. Even if I really love a horse, I just know, gosh, if they don't get off to just the perfect start out of the gate, the race could be over in the first 50 yards for that horse because everybody else is going to try to break like a rocket and get over to the rail. Suddenly you're shuffled back. You're sitting 6th or 7th. That's not really where you want to be in this race. So I'm just always hesitant, but I think that horse has a lot of talent. And all the things we said about Maker earlier, apply here. And Luis Saez has got off to a little bit of a cold start, but has been heating up the last couple of weeks up here at Saratoga.
Yeah, definitely. He's found his groove, Luis Saez. Yeah, he's definitely kind of, gotten his adjustment in, a couple summers ago. I'm sure you remember he just dominated the Saratoga.
Yeah. He knows how to ride this horse.
He definitely does. And I think he's getting back into that form that we've seen before. So I'm excited to just kind of keep seeing him progress. I like him on a horse on Travers Day. Not in the track. Well, I do like, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I do love Luis Saez on a few mounts on Travers Day there.
Yeah.
A horse that I think is interesting here before we move on. Sorry, this is just such a deep race. Is this horse the Toner? I think this horse is kind of good underneath. I'm not sure. Could you let me know the morning line on this horse?
Yeah, the Toner's 20-1, so this is a great underneath play.
Just looking at the fact that this horse, has kind of obviously still a maiden, is the only horse that's kind of shown any ability to pass horses. The last couple races has been 5th and 4th, and has closed to be 2nd behind Smile and Say Cheese and Under Whose Radar, both of which come back today. So I think that's just an interesting horse. If you're looking to maybe play some exotics, play some vertical tickets, stuff like that, this could be an interesting horse, and it's probably going to be at least 20-1 with the amount of competition in this field. This is a horse that could maybe get ignored in there. And it's not like we haven't seen some crazy upsets in these 2-year-old races at Saratoga. So, anything's possible. Maybe this horse springs a massive upset with a 9-way pace tool, and he's the only one that is able to kind of sit off.
No, it's a good point. It's a good angle, and I think you will get that price. The horse is still a maiden, but I think can provide value, like you said, underneath. You just want to play a straight exacta of some way, or put this horse in your 2nd or 3rd spot. It's a way of enriching an exacta trifecta. I love doing that in races where maybe I like a favorite or a shorter priced horse, but I want to turn that into a little bit more value, finding a horse like this. And it's not uncommon to see 2-year-old maidens come up and win these types of big races. And again, we're talking about horses that are still maturing, still figuring things out. And you brought it up. That's by far and away the most seasoned horse in this field with 6 career starts. So, some of these horses, are they going to be a little phased by the experience? That horse isn't going to be phased by this. And that really, I do think means a lot, and has, like you said, a little bit of experience coming off the pace. 20-1, love it.
Absolutely. We'll move on to the 10th race here in a second. I do just want to touch on the favorite Moplex, your grade 3 Sanford winner on opening day, 2 for 2. Irad Ortiz is going to be aboard. This horse is going to be a short price. I have him 2nd. You have him off your ticket completely, which I do respect because I think it's a good spot to beat him. I think this horse, I just like the draw that he got here. I think if there is a horse that's going to be able to kind of sit right in that 2nd flank, I think it's going to be this horse, kind of that 2nd flight, maybe too wide, hopefully not too much wider than that, going into the turn, and hopefully able to just, take over for those pace setters, has the experience and has shown the ability of knowing how to win. Obviously, again, going to be a short price, and probably, probably a horse that should be able to be beat in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, and a deserved short price. You want to open company grade 3. You absolutely deserve to be the favorite in this race. Make no mistake. The Beyer speed figures aren't overwhelming necessarily. And I think 6 furlongs might be his limit. But that said, those complexities, we talked about Vekoma earlier, the complexities are off to a very good start as well from a first crop sire. And Jeremiah Englehart has won a bunch of races during this meet, including obviously the Sanford, but won a couple of other 2-year-old races also. So he's got a nice group of young horses that he's been bringing down here to Saratoga. I agree with the outside post position you would imagine is going to allow that horse to just kind of slot over during the backstretch and get into the right position, maybe sitting just off. Irad Ortiz Jr. staying aboard shows you the confidence that obviously he has in this horse, and any horse that has Irad on, you got to take seriously. It was, listen, this is going to be the leg I'm most nervous about because, I'm trying to beat the favorite here. Kind of going under the assumption that 2-year-old races tend to be a little bit more chaotic and, crazy things can happen, but would hardly shock me if a horse like Moplex it just shows off his class to some extent and goes, buy our speed figures, the heck with it. I know how to win a graded stakes race, and these other horses don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. This race could genuinely produce, pretty much anyone in the field. It's such a deep race. And those 2-year-olds, you can never tell start to start.
Yeah, no, you could get a $60 winner or a $4 winner. It could go either way.
Yeah, and it'll probably be decided by like a nose. It'll probably be something where it's that close at the end. Moving on to race 10, we have the Yaddo handicap, where we have a pretty prohibitive favorite. I don't have the morning line, but I'm sure Silver Skillet's got to be in the 8-5 range.
Yeah, you nailed it right on the dot. 8-5. That is exactly the right price.
Yeah, this horse is tough to beat. Let me put our picks up on the ticker. You have the 5 as your top pick here. Obviously, a very strong contender. And I don't think, my personal opinion, any horses with proven turf form are going to be able to beat this horse. I just think this horse is head and shoulders above the rest of this field based on just kind of ability and talent. My only pivot here was to go to Stonewall Star for Horacio de Paz. I think he's had a really good meet. He's able to win with turfers. And he has some pretty good numbers going dirt to turf, 12% with a $3.28 ROI, which is pretty strong. A lot of times horses, first time on a new surface, that's sometimes where you'll get their best effort. It's just kind of that it either wakes them up. It can just kind of give them a big step forward. So I'm just kind of hoping for that with Stonewall Star. However, Silver Skillet is quite the formidable opponent.
Just to put one more point on Stonewall Star for you, which I think is I like that angle of a surface change, and particularly a surface change for a trainer I really respect. I have a ton of respect for Horacio de Paz, the type of operation he runs, the type of barn he runs, does things the right way, he places his horses in the right spots. I like Horacio quite a bit. And there's a fair amount of turf pedigree underneath with this horse. The dam Janata has produced another horse that was actually a New York bred stakes turf route winner. So, there is pedigree to suggest this horse will run well on the green stuff. So I think that makes a lot of sense as trying to maybe zig a little bit in this race, and you're getting an 8-1 morning line price on that horse too. So I definitely like that. If you're going to try to beat the favorite here, take a little bit of a swing with a unknown quantity. But yeah, Silver Skillet, listen, the 5, she's just the class of the field on the turf. And it's for a barn that you have a lot of confidence in with Christophe Clement, Joel Rosario up on the mount, who's ridden her many, many times before. You go back and look at these races in New York Bred Company, obviously won the last 2, including one that wasn't even on that was actually taken off the turf, ran 4th by less than a length in the grade 3 Pebbles. And I think that allowance win in April, or that allowance effort in April, that was the first race off the bench, and I'm willing to forgive that effort. But otherwise, you go back, look, winning the Susie O'Kane last year, it just seems to be the class of this field on the turf. So this was one where, again, we talk about ticket construction. If I'm going to use a favorite and I have a really strong opinion about it, I'm probably not going to include a lot of other horses in this race. And so I just thought, something, I'm just going to go with the single here and, put together a pretty small base ticket looking over this entire pick 5. But this one, looks pretty tough.
Yeah. You mentioned all the good points. Formidable opponent here. Probably not going to be comes out of a race with a lot of these. Lisa's Vision, Marvelous Mod. I mean, in a situation like that, they're not really going to turn the tables on this. In addition to that, kind of looking through all the other horses, there's no other real speed. This horse is kind of just quick out of the gate. I mean, the first call was up by 6 lengths, going a mile and a 16th. And then, they slowed it down. That's a pretty slow second quarter, going about close to 26 seconds. But when you have that 6-length lead and you can give them a breather, I will say Rosario, If you get him on the lead, dirt or turf, he is a big threat. He knows how to get a horse to just relax into his hands. He knows how to get him to kind of catch that, take a breath. He has great, awareness of how much space to keep between him and that second place horse if he's on the lead, and he knows how much he's got underneath him when he turns for home. So if he's on the lead, especially with a horse like this, it's going to be tough because he's, as you mentioned, he's ridden this horse many times before. He knows what he has under him.
Yeah, he does. And that's a great point about Joel, because a lot of people think about Joel and they think about those thrilling, coming from off the pace and just, oh my God, is he going to get there? And, finally getting it the wire or something. But Joel on a speed horse is about as good as anybody. I mean, you get him on a horse that he clearly knows this horse has speed based upon what you just said with that last race. And you get him on a speed horse. Yeah, he's great. He's got a great internal clock. He knows what he's got under him. And it's just really dangerous on those types of horses. But we should mention the other part that I like about her is she's shown the ability to come from off the pace too. So if for some reason the break doesn't happen as well, somebody else really decides to challenge her, it's not as if she's a need to lead horse. She can come from off the pace. And that sort of versatility is just adds to the reason why she's your 8-5 favorite.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Too versatile in this spot. Definitely going to be tough to beat. We'll move on to race 11 here. I do just want to touch on what love looks like for Todd Pletcher with Dylan Davis coming off a layoff. Has some tactical speed. Is going to probably sit, in that second flight again. I'm just not sure if this horse is going to be good enough in this spot again with Silver Skillet. That's just kind of going up against a monster, and with the proven turf form this horse has, and it's still a good handful of buyer points shy of Silver Skillet's last two races, one being on dirt on that off track. But with a 91 buyer on turf for Silver Skillet, I'm just not sure that this is the spot where to beat her.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but this one, what Loves Look Like's run against good races, and interestingly enough, she's actually the half sibling to your pick, the number 6 horse, actually. So the two of them are actually half siblings to each other with the same dam. So it's kind of funny that they're now racing against each other in this spot. So, but yeah, I think that's a horse. What Loves Look Like. I think that's a horse you absolutely, if you want to, it's going to be second choice at 7-2. I just wanted to check that morning line a little bit, and is clearly kind of the second alternative in this race. So Silver Skillet, if you want to play against her, then listen, I think What Loves Look Like makes a lot of sense. And I really do like the choice that you made. I like that, trying to take a little bit of a swing on a new surface with Stonewall Star. I like that.
Yeah. That damn Janata, I must have missed that one somehow in my pedigree digging, because I have that Stonewall Star is a half to Citizen K. The other, New York bred turf router for, I believe, still Horacio de Paz.
Which and then,
so
yeah,
and then so another big turf producing dam.
It's a very productive mare.
Absolutely, especially for those turf routes. But yeah, Stonewall Star being successful on the dirt definitely has some versatility of that pedigree. Moving on to race 11. In my opinion, this was the toughest race in the sequence. Probably even more so than the 2-year-old race. Given that it's close. We both went 4 deep in here. I went 5, 6, 11, and 2. You went 8, 6, 9, and 10. Both went in completely different directions. So we'll start with you. You have the number 8 horse, which is Autumn, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one who, listen, she's a horse that is getting up on the lead, and is a little bit like a horse we talked about earlier today, and doesn't necessarily finish as strong as she probably should. For Carlos Martin, Jose Lezcano up on the mount, I thought the last time out was a better effort. I really like that race she's coming out of. She's actually coming out of 2 back. She's running against Island Fox, who we talked about earlier. But then last time going up against Summer Whirl, who then goes to run 4th in the Susie O'Kane. There's a bunch of horses coming out of that race. She was kind of the best of that group in terms of finishing the best out of that group. Listen, it's one of those things where I've not been a big fan of using speed horses up, on the turf, but there doesn't seem to be a ton of pace in this race. And I just thought, listen, she was going to be clear kind of speed of the speed here. And maybe Lezcano can just kind of divvy out the fractions and make sure they're pretty reasonable up on the front end. And I know 0 for 8, this is kind of probably the last chance I'll give her to break her maiden as my top choice, but thought I would just give her a shot here. What I admit to you is a completely wide open field. And I think very like-minded people can disagree and go in a lot of different directions in this one.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's any issue with that at all. This game's about, pressing your strongest opinion. So I kind of enjoy that we have I believe what is a 11 horse field before the AEs. We have 8 different horses between the two of us in our picks, which is pretty cool. My top pick was Luna Patina for David Duggan. I mentioned my, love for David Duggan a little earlier in these kind of cards. I don't believe Luis Rivera is going to be on. I hope he gets well soon. I heard he took a spill at Thistledown the other day, if I have the jockey correct. So I'm not sure who's going to be the rider there. Again, well wishes to him on a speedy recovery. But to this horse, I liked his last race. His 2 turf tries have improved, race over race. Adding the blinkers, I think, kind of sharpened him up, and he got really close. Finished a good third at a big price. I don't know that we'll get exactly that 40 to 1, but I can't imagine he's going to be too short of a price. Probably, in the 10 to 15 to 1 range.
Yep, 15 to 1. 15 to 1 is the morning line.
So I think in a race this wide open, I think this horse has the ability and has the speed figures, has the, tactical speed, if you will, to kind of sit a good trip and to tip out top of the lane and kind of power home. So I figured in a race like this, why not take a bit of a shot at a good price with Luna Patina?
Absolutely. No, it makes sense. I mean, in a wide open race, you typically want to go with a little bit of a price in here. And I think it's interesting that both of us, in terms of our top 3, you have the number 2 as your 4th choice, but, we both kind of went away from those inside horses who are your top 2 choices on the morning line, 7 to 2 and 9 to 2. My top choice was 5 to 1, Luna Patina 15 to 1. Yeah, take a little bit of a swing here. I mean, this feels like a very, very wide open affair. So, and this is one of the reasons why I was trying to stay kind of skinny in a lot of the legs up to this point, because this is the race where you really feel like I could spread pretty deep and still have trouble catching the winner.
Absolutely. This get out race is tough for sure. Also, I misspoke. We have 7 horses between us because we both like this number 6, Saint Chapelle, Dylan Davis, Christophe Clement. Irad Ortiz hops off this horse, but we get Dylan Davis. And to me at this point, that's really not a downgrade with how well he's been riding. What did you kind of see here? Because that last race, just on face value, wasn't the strongest.
Wasn't the strongest, but it was also the first race back from a pretty extensive 8-month layoff. So I'm always willing to forgive those types of efforts, particularly for a barn like Christoph has, where he's not trying to get these horses cranked up necessarily for that first start off that long of a layoff. And I just, listen, second off the bench is usually an angle that a lot of handicappers go to. You expect to see an improved effort. The other thing is, and you and I, know this, is in a race like this with a lot of maidens, I tend to be attracted to horses that have had fewer bites at the apple to this point and have the potential for improvement. So when I see a horse that only has 3 starts and only 2 on the turf and now a second back from a long layoff, I go, hey, there's some things to like here. This horse could really move forward in this race. And I just thought, listen, I know that first one wasn't great, but I think that's where you get the value. Is people might overlook it. They might just look at the buyers, and just go, that's a toss. But again, I think second start for a barn that I really trust in this spot. And Christoph, if he didn't have confidence in this horse, he could have easily found a maiden claiming spot, to drop this horse into in class, but he brings him right back in this race. So I think this one is live at a little bit of a price. And I just want to double check real quick for you. 12 to 1 on the morning line for Saint Chapelle.
That is a great price for these connections for a trainer, as you mentioned, who doesn't have them cranked up first time out. And I think you'll get pretty much every bit of that 12 to 1.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at this field, it's a really deep field, maybe 10 to 1. But I mean, it's going to be a deep and contentious field. And yeah, I think we both, share similar viewpoints with this number 6. Also comes out of a race third, the winner was Island Fox, who we spoke about a little earlier. I believe in the first race in this sequence, who was your top pick, and I believe my second or third there. So that's also, if we view that race as kind of a key race, that's something to kind of keep in the back of our minds for sure. A horse that I kind of also thought was interesting was this 11, top of the table. Mark Hennig with Johnny V on board. I thought might suffer from the kind of wide trip kind of similar to how she did last time. Was kind of up on the pace and then kind of faded out. First time turf, coming off a bit of a freshening. Ran at the Belmont at Saratoga meeting and now coming back in this spot. Out of a Kitten's Joy mare from Flame Away. So I think has the breeding to, take to the turf. And again, I think this is just one of those, to your point, where not many bites at the apple. So second time turf, off a bit of a layoff where, Mark Hennig's not the strongest, only 11% with an 84-cent ROI. But I do love Johnny V in a spot like this, with a race kind of this wide open, taking a jockey that kind of knows where to position their horse, where to get them and how to win and how to finish those races, I think is always important. So, that kind of also kind of led me over the edge to take this horse top of the table.
Yeah, definitely. And Hennig and Velasquez are a good combo together. And I think, second start on the surface, definitely a horse that is absolutely 100% bred for the turf, being out of the Kitten's Joy Dam and Flame Away up top. So, definitely a horse that I know a couple of my colleagues who are big fans of any horse that has a connection to Kitten's Joy. They will typically throw an obscene amount of money at. So they're going to be big fans of this one. I have a feeling on Sunday.
That's awesome. And then I think as our kind of last or your last third choice. Yeah, third choice here. Sorry. Yep. Third choice, we have In All My Dreams, Tony Dutrow with Manny Franco aboard. Blinkers on for this spot. What kind of attracted you to this horse?
Yeah, the blinkers on, and kind of a couple of things we've already talked about. One, kind of only 2 bites at the apple, so relatively unraced and lightly raced, I think is promising. Blinkers come on, and I think it's the right sort of move to see the blinkers come on because, that last race just, got off to a slow start, was really hung wide despite being, breaking from the inside post. But you get the blinker on, you get Manny up on the mount. You'd expect this horse to be a little bit more forward, kind of replicate that debut effort where, she sat second or, sat fourth, I should say, in a tracking spot for most of the trip and just came up short. So I think the blinkers are going to be a nice little addition here, maybe a little bit more of a perk up. And like you said, a similar sort of, little bit of a layoff, but hasn't run since that Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here at Saratoga. But another one, sired by Malibu Moon. I tend to trust those on the turf. And again, I think that's one where, Tony Dutrow hasn't won yet, but 6 of his 10 horses have hit the board. So to me, that tells me his horses are at least ready. They're coming out. He's placing them well. They're firing. They're just not winning. And it's interesting. A trainer we talked about earlier, Horacio De Paz, had kind of a similar issue last year where he was at one point, I think 1 for 39 for the meet, but he had something like 20 horses that hit the board. And so he was clearly getting so close so many times. And I remember that last week, I think he came through with like 3 winners the last week. And I was like, yeah, finally, that week, the law of large numbers starts to kick in. Like you just can't keep finishing second all the time if you're turning out live runners. So thought I'd take a little bit of a shot on this one as another choice and alternative in this race.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think In All My Dreams is a great horse to go to, especially in a field this wide open. Definitely hasn't, disgraced themselves in those 2 runs. I think the blinkers on will sharpen them up and they should, give a good account of themselves. I think, the trainer stat where they're 0 for, especially at Saratoga, it seems you'll have, Rudy went 0 for 32 or something this year. And he had a good amount hit the board. Chad Brown just a couple years ago went 0 for like 18 or 19. It's just, eventually those photo finishes are going to go the other way. Eventually, when you're placing horses that well, as you said, the law of large numbers is going to catch up and, water finds its level. So I think, even though he hasn't won yet at the meet, I think having, I don't think that means he's not, live in this spot. I think, as you mentioned, Tony's been really good at placing his horses well throughout the meet. He has a lot that have hit the board. I think he's just waiting for, one of those photo finishes to go his way. And that very well could be this race with it being wide open. It's going to be a matter of trips. And having Manny Franco on board certainly helps. He is a great turf rider, or a great rider in general. So I think he's going to be a key. I want to talk about our pick 5 tickets as I just put them down on the ticker. We gave ourselves a $50 budget so we can, kind of have a good affordable ticket. I went, 4, 7, 12. I'm going to single the 8. And if the 8 decides to go to Charlestown, I'll be using the 2 that's landed that we talked about. And then I'll be going 4, 7, 10 with 5, 6. That's going to be Silver Skillet, the prohibitive favorite we talked about. But I do also want to use Stonewall Star in there. And then in this last get out race, I'm going 5 deep to make it a $45 ticket. I'm using the 1, the 2, the 5, the 6, and the 11. And I still don't feel confident with just those 5. Obviously, we just had to keep it under that budget. But this race is tough. Could you just walk us through your pick 5 here? Because I know you have the alternative as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in race 7, I went 7, 11, 6 as my top 3 choices. And those are the 3 that I'll be using. In race 8, like you, I singled the 8. If the 8 doesn't run, I went too deep then. I went with the 2 and the 4 Dolomite in that race. Race 9, I go 1, 7, 8. Race 5, I just decided to single Silver Skillet with the 5. And then in race 11, I go 6, 8, 9, 10. So if my main squeeze runs as an $18 ticket on a 50-cent base, if she doesn't, then it's a $36 ticket on a 50-cent base. And like you, I still don't feel confident about that last leg. So it's, but that's the beauty of building an $18 base ticket, which is if you really don't feel confident on the day of the race, you wait to see what scratches might happen and things like that. Mm-hmm. And you go, listen, God, I've been really disciplined this whole ticket. And, if you want to add a 5th horse, if you want to add a 6th horse, it's not a bankroll breaker. If you want to go a little bit deeper in that last leg to try to feel confident, it might only add, $1.50 or $3 to your ticket or something like that. And that's fine.
Absolutely. I have a, kind of one-off kind of question as it regards to kind of pick 5s or relates to pick 5s. Are you much of an all button player?
No.
I
do not like the all button. I don't like the all button. I will force myself to find at least a couple of horses that I can make the case against. And so I really don't like playing the all button. I know people who do, who are very successful players. So it's not, it's not prohibitive to that. But I always try to find, let's try to skinny this down a little bit, and it can be tough sometimes. There are definitely races where, it's a 5-horse race. I mean, we got a race, you're recording this Thursday, and we got a race up here today at Saratoga, the Boston Spa, which that feels like an all race to some extent because it's, Gina Romantica and Butte Cachet and Surprisingly and Delahaye. I mean, it's a really tough race. And you go, wow, listen, just press all 4 horses, what the heck. But it's I usually try to root at least one out, but it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, in a race like today, you mentioned the Boston Spa. When you have, I think one of them scratched. So I think you have 4 Chad Browns and 1 Todd Pletcher. That's a kind of scenario where it's like any of those Chads could win. And then
100%.
Pletcher, and I believe Dylan Davis has the mount today. Obviously, that's going to be a live horse. Surprisingly, has some really good form. If Surprisingly runs their race, like, they're going to be right there at the finish as well. So that's definitely in a field like that where you're only going 5 deep. I went 5 deep in my last leg. That's, a little different. I'm not a huge all button player either. Unless I have, 2 or more singles that I really, really like. In this sequence, I don't know that I, love Silver Skillet. However, I think that's by far the horse to beat on form. So a ticket that I think could have some high upside would be, you kind of play yours in that first leg. You can single the 8. You single the 8, my main squeeze, assuming they run. You single Silver Skillet, and then you go all on the 2-year-old and all on the last. and just, hope for some boxcar payouts. Just because, anything is possible in those races. That's not how I'm going to play any of my tickets. That was just kind of looking through as I was kind of crafting my ticket. I was thinking like, oh, if we didn't have a budget and I could just play, whatever fun ticket I wanted. Like, I kind of feel confident that those two singles could get it done. And then you just hope for boxcars pretty much. But I'm in the same boat as you. I love to, press an opinion that I have, or at least force myself to narrow it down to a handful of them. Instead of, just hitting that all
the
button.
Flip side is, and the flip side is you try to zig where other people zag too. And if you go, listen, if everybody's going to be singling my main squeeze and silver skillet, then I'm going to try to find a single in one of these other legs that looks really, really tough. And I'm going to spread maybe and try to beat the favorite in those other two where everybody, there's a lot of strategy that goes behind this. And that's, you look at that late pick 5 on Travers Day, and there's going to be some horses, a horse like Silver Knot, a horse like Vava. Those are horses that I think a lot of people might build their tickets around as a single. Mm-hmm. And the way that you end up cashing a better ticket is if you go, listen, I can try to beat that horse and not even include that horse on your ticket and really try to zig where everybody else is zagging. So there's so much strategy with this stuff. And again, bankroll has a huge impact on it. If you're just the casual fan and you're playing with a, as we had today, $50, bankroll, then you're going to build one type of ticket. But if you're somebody who's got, a couple $100, couple $1,000, you can be a little bit more flexible with that all button, with that, with how you want to approach that, and building out multiple tickets as well. That's the other kind of part of this we didn't really get into, which is fine. But understanding how to build out multiple tickets so that you can still leverage your opinion in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point at the end there. That also kind of pivots us into the Travers Day. But yeah, having those A, B, and C ticket configurations where, as you mentioned, you have Silver Knot, you have Vava, two horses that are going to be pretty prohibitive favorites, I would imagine. Maybe with Measured Time being in with Silver Knot, you might get a bit of a 9-5, 6-5 situation on both of those, but still both of those good horses. So yeah, you're just trying to kind of beat and then narrow down other people's opinions. For example, I have a single in the H. Allen Jerkins, which is a very, very deep race, but I have a horse that I've loved, just kind of coming up, and I'm ready to just single that horse because I like Vava, I like Silver Knot and Measured Time. Yeah. I think those horses are just going to be tough in that spot. I want to dig a little more, into the ballerina, because I do think there are some other options to go there, but with Vava, coming off a bit of a layoff, maybe won't be as sharp as she was the last time she ran. But I found a horse in the Jerkins that I love. I know that's going to be a race a lot of people go deep in, so that's where I want to narrow. And then I can spread my opinion in the Travers, which I think is a really deep race. I'll kind of use that to kind of pivot to the Travers because we want to do our Travers best bets or our Travers picks for Saturday. Again, going to be an amazing card. I have my top pick is Dornoch. You have yours as Sierra Leone. Obviously, going to be two of the top betting choices, probably right there with Fierceness. And I think Dornoch, we kind of both have picks with different running styles, obviously, drastically different, if you will. Dornoch loves to go to the lead and doesn't love to get past down the lane. And then Sierra Leone is gonna, be 10 lengths out of it, maybe more, kind of going, and then is just gonna be charging like a freight train coming down the lane. So Sierra Leone hasn't, finished off a race since I believe the Bluegrass, coming in first, but has been right there every step of the way. What kind of led you to believe that this was going to be the time for Sierra Leone?
Yeah, it's tough. Because if he doesn't win this race, then you start thinking, is he Tacitus? Is he Zandon? Is he a horse that just kind of can't quite get the job done while running honest every single time? Like you said, he's the opposite of Fierceness, right? He doesn't run a bad race. He's as consistent can be. I just think the 1.25 miles, he's bred for this. When you see him in the paddock, you know where the $2.3 million went.
Yeah.
Because man alive, is he a good looking horse. And he has a big stride. And it seemed like they were able to keep him pretty straight last time. And I think that was important. That's one of the issues. He was all over the place and bumping into horses and making his own trouble to some extent. You wonder if he has a little bit of hang in him based upon maybe not getting by Fierceness and that Jim Dandy. But I just think the pace situation is going to be aggressive. Dornick's going to be up there. Fierceness is going to be up there. Torpedo Anna wants to be a part of the early pace, I would imagine, from the pocket trip, probably on the inside. But then a horse that you like as a long shot, Batten Down, that's a horse that absolutely needs to be on the front end. Hasn't won any other way. And Junior Alvarado, we just a couple weeks ago won on Arthur's Ride by being aggressive out of the gate and getting that horse up on the front end. So Junior's going to have some intentionality. Unmatched Wisdom, I think that's more than just a rabbit for Chad Brown. I think that's a really good horse that also wants to be up front. So you're looking at 4 or 5 horses who want to be a part of that early pace. I just think when you combine distance and pace, it sets up for a horse coming from off the pace. I think this is the race Sierra Leone gets it done. Admittedly, probably not going to be the longest price in the field by any stretch. It's going to be, one of the competing for favoritism with Dornick, with Fierceness, with Torpedo Anna. But at Dornick, your top choice. Listen, he's just a stubborn son of a gun when he gets up there on the front end. He does not like to. It's so funny to see how different he is when he's up front versus anywhere else in the field. That when he's up front, he just gets mad when other horses try to get by him. And but when he's sitting 4th or 5th, he's like, that's all right. Let them go. So it's a really funny thing to see.
It is. Dornock being on the lead, when he came into form and kind of really announced himself during the Belmont Stakes, he turns into a different horse when he is on the lead and when he looks another horse in the eye coming down the stretch. So that was something that led me to him. But that's also kind of why I chose my long shot as Batten Down. You mentioned he's going to need the lead. The breeding on Batten Down with Tap It out of the close hatches, which has been wildly successful. That was something that led me to that. And then Junior Alvarado's ride on Arthur's Ride in the Whitney, where he just sent basically like a banshee going out of there. I think that Batten Down, knowing that he's more successful on the lead and that's where he has his best shot to win, maybe Junior does the same thing with the speed to the outside of him. Maybe he just tries to go. I think Torpedo probably going to be sitting, in that pocket trip, as you mentioned. I don't know that they'll send Torpedo right out to the lead with all that outside speed. I think having the rail is going to be beneficial, or having the rail is going to be, a plus for them, so they can just kind of break. Torpedo's a sharp gate horse, so she'll break. She's going to run, her race pretty much every time. She's shown so much tactical ability that she should be fine, kind of no matter where she lays. But I picked Batten Down because I think Junior might just send him out there. If Batten Down gets on the lead and Dornock and Fierceness are forced to kind of settle in that second flight, maybe Batten Down gets brave coming down the lane. Because we've seen Dornock when he's not in first. And he's not as effective. Even if he's kind of in second, he's still not as, mean. He's not as much of that like bully and that kind of horse. Fierceness, we haven't really talked about a whole lot before I get to your long shot. Are you a big, looking at his past performances, obviously you can see the bounce the bounce after a good effort. Are you someone that pays attention to that? Or do you think he can kind of repeat his last race here?
So I'm not. A lot of times when a horse is an AB type of horse or an on-off, a lot of times there's reasons for it. A lot of times you can go, oh, well, they're stepping up in class here, or there's conditions, or there's something that happened. It's not just as simple as the horse doesn't want to run every other race. But it is pretty noteworthy with him. And he was my top pick in the Jim Dandy, and he made me look smart that day. And I just don't know if he likes to run back this quickly. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's a horse that needs a little bit more time. And, I know that my colleague up here at NIRA, Andy Serling, pointed out that his best effort came on 24 days rest in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, you could argue, after a really bad performance in the Champagne, admittedly in the slop, and didn't have a good start that day. And there were excuses. But that said, that was against 2-year-olds. That was going a mile and a 16th. That was, as you know, out of Santa Anita. That tends to be a pretty speed favoring track. And there were a lot of things that let that situation go. And he had the perfect trip. I think that as he's gotten older and he's run against older horses, he's running longer distances. I just think that those races take a lot out of him after, in between. And he's not the most physically developed horse. When you see him in the paddock compared to the other horses, you go, I don't know. Why did I pick this horse? You just see, he's not Sierra Leone. He's not, this powerfully built horse. And I just think he's got major distance issues at a mile and a quarter. I think he's closer to a horse like Life is Good. Put him in a 1-turn mile, you put him at maybe 9 furlongs under the right conditions, just like Life is Good could do. I think that's kind of the closer comparison for him. A mile and a quarter, I just think is a bridge too far in this spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I've never been a huge fan of Fierceness. He's burned me a couple times because he is a great racehorse on his best day. He fires a huge shot, but I've never been a huge fan of him going these distances. I do really love your point of the dirt mile. I think that's something that would hit him kind of right between the eyes. Maybe, a 1-turn kind of configuration if it ever, goes up to Belmont after they're done building that place. So something like that, I think could definitely be something that, would have hit him right between the eyes. And yeah, I agree. I think 10 furlongs is just a little too far for what he really wants to do. I do want to touch on your long shot, Corporate Power, trained by Shug McGahee. That's probably going to be behind Honor Marie, probably the longest shot in the field.
I would imagine 15-1 on the morning line. And I love Shug McGahee as a trainer. He's won the Travers 4 times. And he is a trainer who is just Shug is the old guy at the track that just has a smirk sometimes, and you're like, oh, he's got a live one here. He really likes this one. And the fact he put this horse in this race, I think, tells you a lot about his opinion. Coming off the second in the Curlin, this is a horse that is bred for distance, wants to go, and I think in this race he just gets the right trip. I think that's why I like him at a big price. And even if you don't like him to upset, he's a horse I'm using in my tries. I'm going to use in my super, because there's all that speed. Unlike Sierra Leone and Honor Marie, he's not coming from 10 and 15 lengths back, though. He's going to come from 4 or 5 lengths off the pace. He's going to get first crack at that group. So you combine the fact that he was closing on Unmatched Wisdom in that Curlin, okay, and he was making up ground on that horse. Now you go an extra furlong or 2 furlongs to go to the mile and a quarter, and you get all this pace in front of you, but you have the speed to be able to sit a mid-pack trip traditionally. It's going to be an interesting looking field, but if he's sitting, 5th or 6th in this race, that's a perfect spot for him. And I just think, he's shown the ability to pass horses. And like I said, at 15-1 on the morning line, I think it was a little bit interesting as an upset choice in this spot.
Absolutely. I wouldn't talk you off of that. I think Corporate Power, as you mentioned, Shug's that guy at the track that's going to have a smirk on his face every now and then when he has a live one. And he's one of the guys, him and Bill Mott, you really got to pay attention to where they spot their horses, because they really they'll go where they think the horse is telling them they want to go. So for Corporate Power to come out of that race where Unmatched Wisdom just kind of walked the dog on the front end, uncontested, that was an easy win. I didn't put much weight into the whole Unmatched Wisdom as a rabbit. I think there's enough speed in here, and I think Chad wouldn't waste a talented horse like that.
100%.
And I think Unmatched Wisdom is ready for this in the eyes of Chad Brown, and I think that he'll make a decent account of himself. But going back to Corporate Power, I think he's going to be that horse that's going to have the jump on Sierra Leone, have the jump on Honor Marie, and he's just going to have to run down the Torpedo Annas, the Dornocks, and the maybe Batten Down, maybe Fierceness, depending on how they run. He's just going to have to run them down, and I think he's got a good shot at doing so, because he does finish off races really well. He will close into the pace, and as you pointed out again, he's not going to be coming from a mile out of it. He's going to be right in that kind of he'll be in eyesight. He's not going to he'll be in eyesight. He won't be on the pace by any means, but he'll be within shouting range and be able to give them his best shot. And so I'm really interested to see how this race plays out. This Travers race, the whole card is phenomenal, but this race in particular has to be considered for race of the year as far as how it's going right now.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's one of the best Travers fields we've had in recent memory. I mean, maybe going back to that Arrogate, and obviously, you have Faro and some of those Travers, which were great. But you think back to Arrogate and Gunrunner, going against each other. Although that ended up not being that great of a race in terms of just Arrogate blowing them out. But on paper, I mean, that was still and talk about. I mean, what's so interesting is then last year's race, you have an Arrogate offspring and Archangelo who beats a Gunrunner offspring in Disarm, and they run 1-2, and so that was kind of cool to see the legacy of both horses live on in that last year's Travers. And so it's going to be a great race. It's going to be a great day at the track up here, calling for, sunny skies and 80 degrees. I mean, you can't ask for much better weather than that on a day like today, on Travers Day, and fast and firm conditions, like I said. So we're just excited up here to get some good weather, and look forward to a great day of racing.
Absolutely. I'm excited to, bet along and watch along with y'all from sunny Del Mar, and the weather will be matching out in Saratoga. So that's great for everybody. That's great for the bettors. It's great for the patrons. So Matthew, thank you so much for joining me. I love talking about this late pick 5 on Sunday. Love giving our Travers picks. Love just hearing your kind of insight to everything as a handicapper for Naira Bets. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Awesome. Take care. And good luck on the Travers Day.
Thank you.